So I'm going to tell you this, that I had an experience, and it was a negative one with a psychic once. And I went to them and they did the reading, but in the reading, they said they were going to do all these horrible things to me. And they were going to chop me up and they were going to put me in a bag and throw me in the sea. And so I checked the person's card. It turns out I hadn't gone to a psychic. I had gone to a psycho. So you have to be careful. So
I wasn't expecting that.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Heines for Encounters USA. We are your one-stop podcast and YouTube channel for all things alien, Bigfoot, and Dogman. So relax, kick up your feet, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special Books in Hindsight and Encounters USA program. Now, if you've been watching Books in Hindsight for the past few weeks, we've really had some amazing guests, and today is certainly no different. We are reaching out across the pond, and we are going to be talking with author, psychic, and alien abductee Soma ARah. Now, Soma ARah is coming to us from Plymouth, England. And for you, those of you who don't know much about the jolly old UK, she is actually English. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to introduce Soma ARah to our Books in Hindsight and Encounters USA crowd. So welcome, Soma ARah.
Hi, Matthew. I'm delighted to be here. And Portsmouth, not Plymouth.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I talked to you before, I thought you said Plymouth. And, you must think I'm a complete idiot because I went on to this big, long thing about the pilgrims leaving from Plymouth. So
that's fine. You're actually not the first person who's done that. There's been a few people that have done that.
Yeah. And all of them Americans, I'm sure.
No, some English people as well.
Okay. Well, one thing that we don't do on the show is we don't argue with me. So that's the first thing I have to point out. All right. So I'm just kidding. You can argue all you want. So a couple of things I wanted to ask you about being English. And the first thing is what do you call a woman who drives a truck in England?
A truck driver?
Nope. Lorry.
Oh.
Okay.
Lorry, yeah.
Okay. So then there's another question I have for you. And what do you call a male bathroom attendant that works only in males' bathrooms in England?
I don't know.
Not even a guess?
A male cleaner?
How about loo?
Oh.
Okay, so I'm sure everybody over in jolly old England is rolling on the floor right now, or maybe rolling to turn that dial. So anyway, all right, well, we are going to have a really interesting podcast if anybody's left to listen to it. But right now, I want to find out a little bit more about Soma ARah. So let's start out with the psychic angle and work our way into the author angle. So where does Soma ARah become Soma ARah and start doing psychic readings and whatnot?
Well, that's an interesting question. It all started for me when I was a child. My granddad passed away when I was 9 and came back to me a couple of weeks later, as solid as anything. And I mean, I really saw him physically, very physically. And I'm sure if I'd reached out and touched him, I would have felt his skin and flesh and bone because he was so solid to me. And he gave me a message from my mum that I passed on to her. But I grew up with spirit. I grew up with spirit. And my guides, and I had a very unusual childhood, and I had a lot of trauma, and it was through the traumatic experiences that spirit stepped in. So on one hand, it was horrendous, but on the other hand, it was beautiful. It was kind of cathartic, really, because I had spiritual experiences because of the negative experiences. So I grew up with spirit, and always aware of spirit, always had the I don't know if you want to call it a gift, but always had the mediumship abilities from a very young age. And it was that really that got me through the trauma.
All right. Now I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm looking at you. And I think that the first thing I have to do before we continue on is, do you have any idea? Are you old enough to be on this show? You look like you're like, you're what?
I'm 47.
That is no way. I was thinking, I was thinking maybe subtract about 30 years. Okay. Well, I guess we have to take your word for it, because all you're going to do is bring up a fake ID. But I've seen you before. And if anybody knows what a cherubim is, well, you certainly have that kind of face. And so if you want to look in the Bible for cherubim, well, I think you're looking at one right now. So let's continue on. You've talked about you had negative experiences as a child, and that led to your psychic abilities. And if you're a psychologist, you're going to say, well, those are just, those are coping things. So it is a traumatic experience, are things that happen in a childhood that are not really, conducive to childhood. Are those things that kind of can trigger psychic abilities?
Yeah, Matthew, because what happens is that when a child has traumatic experiences, and mine were mostly sexual abuse, there's an excess of DMT released in the brain, which is a chemical that causes psychic abilities and awareness. So because it shocks the body, it shocks the mind, and it opens it up like it opens up like a vortex or a different world, or a door to a different world. So and that's caused by DMT, an excess of DMT in the brain, which is released through trauma. So that's kind of the it's a chemical. It's not any woo-woo stuff. It comes down to chemicals in the brain being released.
But is DMT is that like dopamine? Is that an accepted chemical in the world of science?
I'm not sure what DMT actually stands for.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen it associated with I don't know what they call it, the pine cone looking part of your brain, or something that shows up in the carvings from Assyria and Iraq and the Anunnaki. Is that the DMT that you're talking about? And that
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So, but that's not something that is accepted by science. We don't know, right?
No, I think that's proven. I'm pretty sure that's scientific proven facts. Yeah.
Okay. So right now you're talking about you had experiences that basically were not good, but they opened up a certain part of your mind, and they gave you psychic abilities. So how does that work when you're telling your parents, well, I just saw Grandpa? What do your parents say?
Well, I gave my mum the message the next day, and the message was things like she had to go to the doctors on the Wednesday. She was signing divorce papers on the Thursday. She had this condition and that condition. And it was so accurate down to fine details that the blood from her face just drained. She went pure white. And I'll never forget that because it had such a profound experience on her.
Mm-hmm. And you were how old? 7?
I was 9.
9. Okay. So you're right. you're right in you're just almost entering puberty, right? And is that when you entered puberty? Is that when things really started to open up for you?
No, I have done things different, kind of back to front. Most people come in a very physical way and then gradually open up to spirit or research things and start getting into the spiritual stuff. But I came in back to front. I came in very spiritual and kind of wide awake to spirit and guides and fairies and nature spirits and Pleiadians and all kinds of things. And my struggle actually has been to be here in the physical and be grounded and be that's been my struggle, has been to be grounded, to ground in the spiritual into the physical. Mm-hmm. Because for most of my childhood, if not all of my childhood, I was out of my body. And that has been one of my biggest life lessons, is to ground that spiritual energy and ground it into my body and be here physically in the physical presence. Because what happens when you are abused or traumatized as a child, you leave your body. And for me, I was connecting with the Pleiadians, but the psychologists call it disassociation, or you disassociate. That would be the psychologist term, but the spiritual term is being ungrounded, but it's the same thing.
I think I think I said compensating, the way you compensate, but I was trying to get into what you just said. Okay, so there's an element of people that have like PTSD. And they say that people who have PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, the common element is not trauma from battle, but it started with trauma from childhood. So you are starting out with basically PTSD, you're disassociating. And so, I mean, let's just stop for 1 second here and just explain to people that are listening that the reason that Soma ARah is on Encounters USA and Books in Hindsight is that she's been abducted, had real physical abductions by aliens. So she's also here because she's written 2 books, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit. But she has had real physical experiences, and her, ability to write. And I know people are especially on Encounters USA, are very skeptical about, psychic this and psychic that. But Carol's success as a psychic, I'm not going to try to endorse anything or try to say a belief system, but the proof is always in the pudding. And Carol is very well respected as a psychic. So from what I see and what we have to go on, what Carol says, basically, we have to accept and take at face value, because the proof is there that she's had a lot of success and she's helped a lot of people out. So we want to get into your books, but I really want to find out about, or before we close this off, I want to know, you're a child or you're getting into your adolescence as a psychic, but you're really living in a world that doesn't even exist, right?
What do you mean?
Well, you're doing all these compensation strategies, and you've got the DMT going, you're talking, to Pleiadians and whatever, but you go down to the public school, I assume public school in the jolly old UK. And I think I get them mixed up, but nobody else is having your experiences. And so how does that work, being in conservative UK society? And I'm talking to the Pleiadians and et cetera. How does that work for a kid?
Can I just backtrack a little bit, Matt?
Yes.
Because you were talking about PTSD, and I actually so when someone has been traumatized as a child, and one of the perpetrator dies, or the parents die, or one of the parents die, when there's a death, either with the parent or the perpetrator, what often happens is that the victim will actually get PTSD at that time. And that's what happened for me when my mum died. And I didn't know what it was because I'd never had it before, and it wasn't familiar to me. So I went for some healing, and I discovered it was PTSD that I had at the time of my mum's death. And so, I got some very good healing, and it was, a friend helped to heal it from me. But that was very unusual for me because that was the first time I'd had it. But that is very common. So I just wanted to add that in. But also, with the psychic stuff and the mediumship, we are actually lied to on a mass scale about who we are, where we came from, why we're here. But we're also lied to on a mass scale about our own abilities, because everyone is born psychic. Everyone has the ability to be telepathic and to do telepathy. Everyone has the ability to connect in with Pleiadian energy or other star nations or light beings, or everyone has a whole abundance of abilities that we are told through the school system that don't exist. So we are lied to on a mass scale, not just about ETs and UFOs, but also science and history and the universe and maths and nature and energy and a whole list of things. We're lied to on a mass scale about everything, including our psychic abilities.
And what? Okay, well, just I know that remote viewing is an innate ability. That most people have it, or probably everybody has it. So, and I agree with you 100%. So why is the system set up like it is, do you think?
Because we are governed and run and ruled by, I'm just going to call it as it is. I don't beat around the bush. We are governed and ruled and owned as slaves, the majority of people, by negative ET energy. So the governments and the royal family are what you would call negative reptilian energy. I don't know how that sits with you, because I don't know.
Well, okay, I'll answer that question as quickly as possible, and because I can't have the king's thugs come and knock down my door and you can't say things about the crown, or as they said on the classic movie The Naked Gun, even though we might find it silly to have a queen, I don't have to suffer those things. So it is, it's the American belief system, and it was written by Thomas Paine in Common Sense that the royalty of England were the successful thugs of the Middle Ages. They were the ones who were, for whatever reason, used deception and torture and did horrible things to people to frighten them into accepting the rule. So, and people don't really understand, and I'm a history person, but the history of Europe is the history of slavery and the history of the domination of the poor by just a few rich with weapons. And the castles, those are monuments to torture and fear. And, so when you say that that's negative energy, well, yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And I do think that, anyway, I'm not going to go into it too far, but this question is something that you and I could sit and talk about for a long time, and maybe at some point in the future we can. But I want to ask you, so you have an idea of the reptilian presence. Is that David Icke, or is that your psychic ability? I don't know if I say David's name right.
No, it's David Icke.
Icke, okay.
Sorry, what was the question?
Is that you? Is that your psychic ability telling you that, the reptilians are here? Or is this Where does that come to you? Where does that come from?
That is from channeled information from the Pleiadians.
Okay.
So, because I connected to the Pleiadians as a child, when I was 8, I had a guy lying on top of me who was just, I couldn't breathe because I was very undernourished. I had a lot of poverty, an alcoholic mom, and a lot of dysfunctional family, and a lot of abuse and rape and trauma and all of it. And I had this guy lying on top of me when I was 8, and he literally was sucking the breath out of me. I couldn't breathe. And I was a skinny little thing. There was no meat on me. I was undernourished to the point I was just skin and bone. And I left my body, and I'd connected to the Pleiadians. Now, I'd forgotten that for a number of years until I did shamanic courses in Ireland and began to have memories of connecting to them as a child. But I'd already started to channel them in 2009, I think it was 2010. And that was one of that's some of the information that they've shared with me, that that we are ruled at the highest level. We are ruled by negative ET energy, and the time period we're in now is of huge significance and is pivotal. We're on the precipice of an awakening that has never occurred before, not in the way that it is happening at the moment on Earth. And it's all to do with the contract that was made between negative and positive ET races. And that time period is coming to an end now, which is why we are seeing things play out on Earth in the way they are, because the negative, both agendas are fighting for their lives, both the positive and the negative. So, and it's also to do with ownership of the Earth. There's many different aspects going on here. It's not just one thing. There's many different aspects, and there's many different levels to it as well. And there's also different dimensions. So it's what's happening is multidimensional and many different levels to it. But we are run by negative ET energy. Is at the top of every system on Earth, whether it's the school system or the government system or the big pharma system or the military system. And that's not to say that there aren't good guys in those systems, because there are, obviously.
Well, okay. You're probably going to go, wait a minute. This is the first guy I've ever had that actually can talk to me about the stuff I'm talking about. All right. But before we get off of this, you haven't answered my question. And the first thing is, it's horrible to hear that story. I really am really shocked, and I'm sorry to hear that. Can I just ask you on a personal level, like, did you, I mean, you're obviously an attractive person. Did you like hate your looks after, I mean, did you come to resent the way that you looked after these things happened to you as a kid? And you know,
I did for a long time. I tried to hide I remember when I was around 12, I think I started wearing baggy clothes because I wanted to hide my body so people couldn't see it. And for a long time, I didn't like myself. You know, I've gone through the whole drug thing, and I was in pain for a long time. Okay. And from about 17 until about 23, I did the whole drug scene, and then when I was 23, I started healing and started just by accident. I was a friend said she had a headache, so I just automatically put my hands on her head, and her headache went instantly. So then I started going to the spiritualist church, and started to find kind of my inner light again. But I want to say that I wouldn't change my childhood if I could, because because it really opened me up to the spiritual side. So without the negative, I probably wouldn't have been able to channel the Pleiadians. I wouldn't have been, connected to spirit in the way that I was. There is an experience I had that I would like to share with you, if it's okay.
Everything's okay.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Thanks. So I've already said about my childhood and the trauma, but I got to a point where I was 12 and I just wanted out. I was done. I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to talk to anyone, and I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to know anything. So I went to my room, and the funny thing is that I think I was around 9 or 10, and Spirit said to me, stop telling people what you're seeing. Stop telling people, zip it, be quiet, because otherwise they will lock you up and throw away the key. Because the stuff I was seeing was just, out of this world, literally. So I stopped talking about things. I didn't tell anyone, around about the age of 9 or 10. I think it was after my granddad, when I saw him, I think it was around then I stopped telling people. But this experience I had when I was 12, I was laying on my mattress in my room, because that's all I had. And the layout of the room, I'll never forget it because of the experience. So I was laying on my mattress, and I left my body. I mean, I was distraught when I left, when I was crying my heart out. I was done. I didn't want to be here. And I was deciding on taking tablets and leaving. And the next thing I knew, I was in the corner of my room on the right-hand side above the door and looking down on my body. And then I went through a tunnel of white light, and Jesus came to me, or I met up with Jesus, and took me on a very long journey for about 3 or 4 hours, and showed me many things, showed me my own karma and my own soul's journey. And then when he understood I got that, then he showed me the bigger picture for humanity. And I was gone for 3 or 4 hours. And when I came back, I was very blissful for about 3 or 4 weeks. I'd gone from being completely distraught and wanting to commit suicide to, when I came back, I was blissful. I'd gone from one extreme to the other. And that experience, because it was so profound, it really changed my perspective and my whole understanding. And I began to meditate. I began to read spiritual books. I didn't have any secondary education because I was the Pleiadians stopped me from entering the school system, because they put a wall of energy in front of me whenever I would try and go into the school, literally. And so I would just stay home and read books and meditate and just really open up psychically. And that's how I spent my childhood years, from the age of 12 to 16. And then when I was 16, I left home and did the whole drug scene until I was around 23, and then got involved into the spiritualist church and just developed mediumship and kind of went on from there. And then I got involved in Buddhism, became a Buddhist, was on the verge of becoming a Buddhist nun, an Annie. And I didn't do that. I went to Nepal and worked in a soup kitchen in Nepal, and then became a shamanic practitioner. And so I've kind of done the whole route,
Wow, that is okay. Now, we don't have all day, so I better start asking you questions about your books. Now, I have to point out to people that this book here, if we were to talk about it, your book, I can't even say the name because it will get pulled off of YouTube. So, but actually, so we have a book about the Pleiadians, and then we also have a book about the Gates virus or whatever. But anyway, unfortunately, I'm going to put it up there. I just want to ask you this. Is the information in the book about the Gates thing, is that from the Pleiadians? This is all revelation? Okay.
Yeah, everything I do is channeled. And
okay.
I purposely don't read other channeled information because I don't want to be influenced by any other channelers or information out there.
Okay. In the book, do you tell people who's in control of this?
Do I tell people who's in control?
In control of the of what's happening to people, of who's controlling this, of, do you talk about that?
Well, at the highest level, it is negative ET energy.
Okay, but I mean, you say it's energy, but are there physical beings that are behind this? And just say yes or no, because we can't talk about it because this is the crazy world we live in. But is there a reason? Is there an end result for what's going on that's been planned?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that book is available. That's not on Amazon, is it?
It was banned on Amazon straight away.
How do we get it?
It's on my website.
Okay. Okay. And that's the Pleiadian Child?
Yes, the Pleiadianchild.com.
Okay. And I'll throw a link up here when I do the editing. All right. Well, that's great. So let's go over to the Pleiadian Child then, which we can talk about. So I have to start off by asking, who are the Pleiadians? And let's start there before we talk about your relationship with them. But who are they?
Well, when people ask me that, I like to keep things simple when people haven't heard of them before, because I don't like to complicate things. I just normally say that they are very similar to archangels, because they are. To me, they're very angelic beings. They are light beings. They are, working in the light. They are from the Pleiadian star system, from the Pleiades star system, and they are very loving beings that have our best interests at heart, but they're very similar to archangels.
Okay, are they humans? Do they inhabit physical bodies, or not humans? I'm sorry, but are they subject to the same physical properties that they can't just pop in and out like bewitched or anything, right?
Well, they're in a different dimension, so they can pop in and out.
Okay.
They're in between the seventh, I believe it's the 7th and the 13th dimension. Okay.
And how did they get to be Pleiadians?
Through evolution. So they are us in the future.
Okay.
They are us in the future.
Okay, but are they us, everybody us, or just the certain ones that pass the tests?
I would say certain people. So on Earth we have many different cultures, and many different races is the wrong word, but different cultures. So, and that the same is, you could apply the same rule for the universe. So the universe is teeming with life, good and bad, as on Earth as above.
Okay, but so let's say this. So you're talking about the Pleiadians are on the 7th dimension. The reptilians, I mean, do you have to have a certain amount of, I don't know, enlightenment? You have to progress. Are the reptilians up at that level, or do they inhabit something below them?
I'm not sure what dimension the reptilians are at, but I wouldn't say they were anywhere near that.
Okay.
But it's to do with the love frequency. The love frequency, when you can hold that love energy in you, that is what helps us to ascend, helps us to operate on a higher frequency, a higher vibration. And that is a process of part of our soul journey, is to reach the light or reach the higher spheres, or the love vibration. And so it is part of our individual and collective soul journey is to evolve. And that's part of the love frequency. And that's very connected actually to what's going on Earth at the moment, because we are in a very real evolutionary phase.
So, okay. So what are we? I mean, when you're a child, you have a sense of right and wrong, of good and evil. That's really pretty much more, it's pretty much innate, and based on the fact, well, you just treat other people like you'd want to be treated, right? But as you get older, then the world that you're talking about, it's justified to do wrong things to other people, to get what you want, to put other people, or to put yourself ahead of other people. And so is this designed to keep us from reaching that Pleiadian level eventually? What's the point of the world in which we live? And I know I have a very heavy question to ask you, but do you have an answer?
I do, Matt. You could say that we are in the dark night of the soul, where we are having to face our own demons, and sometimes literally demons, but we're having to face our own demons and our own shadow and our own negative states of being. We are having to face that in a very obvious way on Earth at the moment, and it's through. We have to swim through the darkness in order to reach the shore and the new dawn. But so this is an evolutionary period that has been talked about and prophesized for many years by many great people and great. The Native Americans were one of them, and the rainbow prophecy. This is known as the rainbow prophecy. That we are. I think that the better answer I can give you is if I just give you the information that the Pleiadians have shared with me, is that we are on the precipice of a huge evolutionary state and evolving and moving forward. And part of that is to let go and move forward. Our bodies are changing, our minds are changing, our brains are changing, our hair is changing, our teeth, our blood, our DNA, our literal DNA is changing. We are evolving into a new human, into an illumined being. And there is a war going on between light and dark, between positive and negative, that has been going on for a very long time. And then there's also the aspect of, because I was talking about a lot of different aspects being at play, also another aspect being in play would be the contract, because there was a contract made between positive and negative ET forces, where the negative won the contract and had ownership of the Earth for a very long time. And that time period, I believe, is 26,000 years, which is coming to an end. So that is also, that pulls in that aspect where it's also to do with time periods and time cycles and stars aligning. So there's a lot at play here. There's a lot at stake. So both forces are fighting for their very lives, but there is a positive outcome. I mean, we are in a time period that we have never had on Earth before, ever. Not in the way that we are having it, not in the way that we are experiencing at the moment, not with the technology, not with the media, not with all the things that we have modern society, that we have within modern society. So we are in unknown territory, but it also ties into what they've shared with me, which is the reversal of Atlantis. So at the time of Atlantis, the downfall of Atlantis, a large meteor or a large object hit the Earth and shook the Earth off its natural axis. And some people, when I say that, I have to be very careful because it sounds like Axis. It's my accent. So I've had comments before where Americans have said, but she's saying access, but it's actually Axis, which sounds very similar when I say it. But the Earth was taken off its natural axis. And so there were, at the time of the downfall of Atlantis, there were great catastrophic events. I feel like I'm going into a channeling, causing great catastrophic events and land masses to shift, which is also tied into Antarctica and the ice occurring at that time. And negative ET energy came in and overthrew the Atlanteans. And they changed our DNA. They dumbed down our DNA to sever. One of the reasons was to sever our connection to the Pleiadians and other galactic beings and our star brothers and sisters like Syrians and other positive ET races or star nations, which I call them. So we lost our connection to them. And so they enslaved us. And they've had control over us ever since. And we are in a time period now where that contract has ended or is ending. And that their rule of us as humanity and their rule of Earth is coming to an end or has come to an end. And where we are really hearing that the rattlesnake's tail, because it already has ended. We are just in like kind of the whiplash. It's like the whiplash, the stage that we're going through as a humanity, as a collective. We've already won. It's just that we're in this kind of limbo state where we've got whiplash collectively. So I do see a positive outcome. There's so much information I could share with you. I'm not really sure where to start. I know I've already gone into some of it, but we're not even going back to a time of Atlantis. We're going beyond a time of Atlantis where we are more evolved than we were at Atlantis. And we are Pleiadian. We are Syrians. We chose to come here, to be here at this time on Earth. And then you've also got the subject of the UFOs. And I'll just pause there because I could just go on and on.
Okay, well, thanks for letting me jump in because have you ever heard of this interview they did with Matilda McElroy? She interviewed this alien, because you're saying the same thing. And what this alien said, and I'll just give you the quick story. Roswell, 1947, they got, one of the aliens, I guess, was still alive. So the only one that it would communicate with was one of the nurses that was on staff. So it told her that 26,000 years ago, the old empire, there's the Dominion, which are the people now. And they supplanted the old empire, right? And the Dominion are like like she's part of the Dominion, and they supplanted the old empire 26,000 years ago. And the whole idea is when you die, I mean, you come here to Earth, and this is according to this thing. Okay, this is the Matilda McElroy interview on YouTube. It's like hours and hours long, all these different things that they talk about. But she takes the nurse through like history and whatever, and supposedly they take the information that we give to the ET, they digest it, they read it, and they tell them, well, no, this is the real history. And but it's all based on 26,000 years ago. They threw out the old empire. They're the Dominion, and the old empire will eventually is trying to come back. But the whole idea now is they just throw souls on, and this is just according to this thing. It's not my personal belief system or anything, but what I do on my Encounters USA show is I like to compare the similarities between different accounts and try to, find a common ground. So you're talking about the same time frame. You're talking about a different group of entities, and they're also part of a conglomeration of different species. So I would highly recommend you watch that. And I'm an author myself, so I've written a book called Deceptions of the Ages, which, when you talk about good and evil, well, that's basically the entire premise behind the book. But you're not preaching to the choir. I mean, you are preaching to the choir on pretty much everything you said, because as you dig, these are the same things that you come up with. So are you a Pleiadian? I mean, in one way or another, physically, spiritually, are you a Pleiadian?
Oh, I mean, I don't like using labels, but I would say that I'm a Pleiadian hybrid. Okay. And I have rhesus negative blood type, which is a very common symptom of having Pleiadian kind of genetics, if you want to say it that way. One thing I want to stress, Matt, is that I don't read other channelers' information, because when I first started, especially when I first started to channel, I mean, sometimes I do lapse a little bit now, but for the majority, I don't want to read others, channeling or watch their videos, because I want to be as pure as channel as I can be. And I've heard other channels say that as well, like Cryon and Wendy Harris as well, and other channelers. So I really don't watch other channelers or read their information. Mm-hmm. Although I have started to watch Cryon recently, and he's very good.
Hello, everybody. Matthew Heines here for Books in Hindsight and Encounters USA. If you want to get some great apparel, just go to encountersusa.com or booksinhindsight.com, where you will get great apparel as well as books by Matthew Heines. Now, let's get back to our interview with Soma ARah. Really good to finish, but the according to this ET, and they're not channeling, she's sitting there talking to the thing, and they've taught it English, so they're talking American English, remind you. Anyway, so they're talking to this thing, and it says that when you die, your spirit leaves your body, and then it's just shocked. They just shock the heck out of it until it forgets everything, and then they put you back. They just send you back to another body. And so it's just this constant, what the Hindus would call reincarnation, but you just never get to leave, right? So here's a question. You said you talked to Jesus. Did he mention anything about how you get to heaven, about how you leave this life, about did he recommend any religions or anything?
I was gone 3 or 4 hours, so he must have said a lot of things. Mm-hmm. I'm planning at some point to have regression done where I actually get that out of body experience recorded with a hypnotherapist or a regressionist. Mm-hmm. So that I have it on tape or video, word for word, what he said. Mm-hmm. But I haven't done that yet. But if you know anyone, I'm very interested in having that done. It's to do with it very much to do with the soul journey and our soul contract, and the love frequency is how we maneuver forward, is how we grow and evolve on a soul level. So we all come from different places and within the universe, which is why some of us are Syrian or Pleiadian, and we've all had all of those experiences. So we are all Syrian in that aspect, and we are all Pleiadian in that aspect. But not so. and sometimes we may have even been Anunnaki. We've all been everything on Earth, being the victim and the perpetrator and everything in between, and also within the universe. So we've been Pleiadian, we've been Anunnaki, we've been Syrian, we've been, there's hundreds of different races within the universe. So we've all been everything. And not sure if that answers your question.
Well, my question really is, because we talked about the negative energy and the Christians have an idea of heaven, there's nirvana. But how, it just seems like everything is set up to keep us away. And you started from the very beginning, talking about the negative energy. So are you going to help people to get to find a way past that?
It does come down to the nuts and bolts of the love frequency. Mm-hmm. That's a game changer, because if you can raise your frequency, stay in that love vibration. And did you know that the love frequency, love vibration is actually measurable? And if it's measurable, you can create it. Mm-hmm. Because anything that you can measure, you can create within you. And that is, this is not woo-woo stuff. This comes down to science and chemicals and frequencies and energy, and how we move forward and how we evolve and how we come away from negative energy and how we come away from warring with each other. And because they are our brothers and sisters, we are each other.
So Soma ARah, if I'm a religious person, like Christian, Muslim, Hindu, is what you're saying, is that going to conflict with my belief system?
No, not at all, because all roads lead to the same path. They all lead to the same source. Mm-hmm. There's many different religions, there's many different beliefs, there's many different writings. There's many different words used to describe the same thing within those different religions, within those different languages, within those different beliefs. There's many different words to describe the same thing. But all religions, we all bleed the same blood. We all bleed the same color. We all bleed red. So it's all, we all... If you've got two warring parties or two warring countries, and the soldiers, when they go home and they take off their uniform and they sit with their wives and their children, they're both having the same emotions. They're both feeling the same thing, the same experiences, mirroring back at each other. And part of the war, not mentality is the wrong word, but part of the warring system is set up to by the powers that be, to keep us warring with each other, to keep us divide and conquer is big at the moment. That's what they're using. That's one of the systems or the programs that they're using at the moment, is divide and conquer. Black against white, young against old, rich against poor, brother against brother sometimes. And even families are warring with each other at the moment. And that divide seems to be growing more and more and more. And that's one of the negative agendas kind of plays that they're using, is to divide us. But we all... There's a very good meme going around a few months ago on the internet, on Facebook, where you had this image of different Labrador dogs, different coloured Labrador dogs. So some were a light colour, some were a dark colour, some were black. But that could be used to describe us. We have different religions, we have different colour humans, but we are all the same. We are all part of Source. We are all part of God. Whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. It's the same substance.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we have different religions, but we are very much like a tree where we have different branches and different beliefs, but it all comes back to the same thing. So it really doesn't matter. And religion, I believe that religion was set up to divide us.
Mm-hmm.
Countries were set up to divide us, as was languages set up to divide us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really I agree 100% with what you're saying. And I think one of the litmus tests, having been, around all different religions, is, I mean, you keep talking about love is this higher element that, seems to transverse everything. But there are religions that don't, preach love, from certain elements of Christianity to, other things and other religions. And, you only love the people who are like you, but you don't love anybody else. And so I tend to agree with you. And I think that a true religion would be one that said, you love the people who are the most different from you, because those are the people that are most lovable, and those are the people you can most learn from. So anyway, that's just a personal observation of mine, but I think that you are right. So I know we don't have forever to talk, but let's talk about the Pleiadian Child. So you're on here because you had an alien abduction experience. Is that correct?
I've had several, actually.
So can you talk about just one? And I want to know, is this in the book? Are we going to see this in the book?
This is in my book, yes. The Pleiadian Child. And that one.
I don't know if you can. So can you talk about your abduction?
Sure, Matt. Can I just quickly add that forgiveness is really kind of a stepping stone towards holding that or having that love frequency within ourselves. So forgiveness for trauma, forgiveness for any type of abuse, or forgiveness of family members will help. It will free you from negative emotions, negative mind states of being. So forgiveness is really key. Whatever religion you are, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And that helps to lighten people's energy and helps to bring in the love frequency. With my book, yes, and the abduction experience, because I am a UFO abductee, contactee, and experiencer. And I have been probably since a child, and even before that, going back into past lives. Because I'm actually from the Pleiades, or my closest memories, my closest connection would be to the Pleiadians. But I have other connections, like we all do as well. But with the UFO, with the grey experience, actually, I just moved to Galway. I think it was in 2009. Well, it was 2009, and I was taken on board ship. Do you want me to go in detail?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't want you to give your book away, because I want people to be interested in the book. But yes, I want to hear as much as you want to tell me.
Okay, great. Well, this is just one experience in the book. So I was in Galway. I think it was around 7 or 8 in the evening, and I could hear this whirring or whirling sound, and I didn't pay much attention to it. And that evening I had this experience where I was taken on board a craft, and there were two greys. There were two greys on my, I think, I'm trying to recall my memory. I think it was on my left-hand side, there were two greys, and on my right, there was one grey. And I was on this kind of a slab of a table that was cold and hard. It was very cold. And I think I'm pretty sure I was naked. And I could hear other people screaming in agony. And there was a lot of lights around. It was very bright, very cold environment. When I say cold, I mean emotionless, lack of emotion. But I could hear other people screaming. One woman in particular really always stands out to me. I can still hear her as I'm talking about it. And I was on this table, and the two greys on my left looked at each other, and then the one on this side, on my right-hand side, they were talking to each other, and they were saying, this one's different, meaning me. And I didn't understand what they meant at the time, not until I started to consciously channel the Pleiadians. And they were going to do experiments on me, or they were in the midst of experiments on me. And then they were saying, this one's different. And they were speaking telepathically. And I didn't understand at the time why they were saying this one's different. So I'm not sure how, what stage they were in process of with doing the experiments on me. But I found it I couldn't get back into my body. And I'd been leaving my body for years and years since I was a child. So I knew how to leave my body and get back in. But this, I couldn't do it. I couldn't get back into my body. So it was like there was a wall of energy that was stopping me getting back into my body. I'm not sure. But that was actually more scary to me. I found that scarier than the actual medical examinations they were doing, or the implants, or whatever they were doing. And I won't give it all away, but and then in the morning I was back in my body, but I couldn't get back in. And it wasn't a positive experience. But I came away with the feeling that they weren't positive or negative, probably veering on more on the negative, but they were just, it was like they were being ordered to, it was like they were soldiers in a sense, where they had orders to do things, and that's all their intention was. That they were kind of emotionless. They were, I would say, numb, emotionally numb, where they didn't care about the emotions or the pain that they were causing humans. They had a job to do, and they were like soldiers in a sense, where they were just following orders.
Or scientists.
Kind of, in a way, yeah. Mm-hmm. They had a lack of empathy towards our pain that they were inflicting upon us. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of people on board ship. There was a lot of people there. I would say, I don't know, maybe 30, 40, 70 or 80 people. Yeah. And I wasn't alone on that ship.
Okay, so you were out of your body. Were you able to look around and see things and see the other people?
No, I could, because I was laying down. I could only see, from my vantage point, I could only see the two on my left and the one on my right. But and the lighting, I could see the lighting, and I had the sense of instruments and machinery, medical things going on. Mm-hmm. I remember some type of lamp with a long thin attached to a long thin kind of metal thing, like you would have in an operating theatre. So it was kind of set up like an operating.
Okay, so that wasn't your first abduction?
That was my first one that I remember.
Okay, but they said that you were different, and so they came back for you after they knew you were different?
Yeah, I believe so. I have a lot of blocked memories from a childhood, but my memory has been, I go blank sometimes, my memory. So I've had implants and things like that, and things done to my memory. And sometimes I wake up with little scars, actually, especially around my forehead. And I have them on my wrist as well, little markings, and lots of things going on. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. So that covers, I don't want to go too far into the book because I want to leave it open, but it is going to be available. The links will be available in the description. and your other book about the thing we can't talk about. And you know, the more you sit there and talk about how these things are unfeeling and unaffected by the pain they cause, I'm just thinking, boy, are these guys Democrats or what? So anyway, that's probably aside. But all right, so you're a psychic, and what, like, do you do psychic readings? Is that what you're doing? Is that your profession?
Yes, I work as a psychic medium and also a Pleiadian channel. So I write and I teach and I give readings. I do workshops. I do talks. I do lectures. You know,
You're amazing. I saw all of your stuff, and I'm just going, oh my gosh, I hit the jackpot here. So yeah, that's great. And are you a replacement for religion? Do you find that? Do you find that's what people look at in you?
I think religion is a false system.
Do you encourage that? Do you encourage that line of thinking?
I think we need to love each other. I don't think religion teaches that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think religion, throughout history and religion, we've been conditioned and dumbed down and taught to believe that the guy over there in that country is our enemy because he looks different, or he's wearing different clothes,
or he's a different religion. He's a different religion.
Yeah. And we're taught and conditioned to be at war with each other. That's not a natural human state of being.
Yeah. Well,
and we're coming away from that, which is, I mean, all the aspects are tied in to what's happening on Earth now. This is a great awakening where we are coming away from warring at each other, whatever religion we are. Mm-hmm. We are all, we're all the same substance. Mm-hmm. We're all the same. We all bleed the same. Whatever cover we're wearing, whether we're wearing a Catholic cover or a Protestant cover or even a Muslim cover or a Mormon cover or a Buddhist cover or a Hindu, whatever, we're all the same. We're all made up of the same stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. So, Soma ARah, I'm not even paying attention to the time, and I cannot see my clock, but I will bet that we are about into an hour or so. So I want to just ask you a couple of final questions. So if I want to, do you do readings for people? Do you do them do you have to do them in person, or do you do them via the internet, or how does that work?
Well, I was given some upgrades and downloads last year and this year. So I kind of have been upgraded in the way that I work, because normally when I channel the Pleiadians, so I do different readings. I do psychic readings, mediumship. I do a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. So if you want to check that out, there's my website, which is thepleiadianchild.com. But basically, I do different readings, like 3 or 4 different kinds of readings. So I do the psychic readings, I do the mediumship. I also do the upgrades I was given last year, or this, when was it? It was last year. I was doing a live interview, and normally when I channel the Pleiadians, they're next to me. But in this live interview, they told me to close my eyes, so I did. And they actually stepped into me and used my voice, which is called direct voice channeling. So I now do that. And I also do it within the reading. So I'm now able to give people direct messages individually in a reading through using direct voice channeling for individual people, which is just beautiful to be able to do. And yeah, so I do different readings and mediumship and psychic readings and channeling. And
do you travel outside the UK?
Not at the moment.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I think when people see you on here, you're going to have a lot of what you would call blokes trying to get you to do your own Brexit and come over here to the US. So there's that. I don't know if that's even funny to you or not, but
I'm very open to that, Matt. I'm very, very open to that. I'm very open to that. Yeah. I mean, I won't go into it because we'll push for time, but
okay. We're not really pressed for time, but there you hear it. So if you want to have Soma ARah come over to the US, and this is our first time, so I'm sure there's a way that it can be arranged. It's just that I deal in different circles, whatever, but probably we can find some way to get you over here. So anyway, I just wanted to throw in that Brexit one. So I'm going to tell you this, that I had an experience, and it was a negative one with a psychic once. And I went to them, and they did the reading, but in the reading, they said they were going to do all these horrible things to me, and they were going to chop me up, and they were going to put me in a bag and throw me in the sea. And so I checked the person's card. It turns out I hadn't gone to a psychic. I had gone to a psycho. So you have to be careful. So
I wasn't expecting that.
Or okay, well, you're going to understand after a while. You're going to go, oh, here's another one coming. So, all right. So, well, Soma ARah, before we go, can you give us a little background? I don't think you were born with that name. Does it have any significant meaning?
Yes, it does. I've been asking for since 2009 for a spiritual name, and I was given it last year. And Soma is a sacred Indian elixir or drink, a sacred elixir. And ARah is to arise, to rise up.
Mm-hmm. So you're a rising up potion.
Something like that, yeah. Which seems to be very, very connected to the time we're in now, because I think that's what we're doing on a collective level, is we're rising up and bringing our energy to the forefront, our higher energy to the forefront.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think, do you have any, and I'm really tempted to just sit here and ask you all these questions, but people probably are going, well, how long is this thing going to last? And I'm sure you've got better things to do, but do you have anything else that you would like to say to our audience before you go? And remember, you're talking to the Books in Hindsight people and the Encounters USA people.
Step into your heart space, step into your heart energy, step into love. Start the process of forgiveness if you haven't already, for little things, but also the bigger horrendous things that have happened to you. Let things go. Step out of your minds and into your heart. And I think I'll just leave it there, Matt, for today. But it's been a real pleasure to connect with you, and I would love to come back and do more and connect with you more, if that's possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna get you back on as soon as we can. And if you'd like to see Soma ARah back on the podcast, just go ahead and leave your comments in the description. So for Books in Hindsight and Encounters USA, we'll be signing off. But we just want to remind you that, well, first of all, we of course have to say thank you, Soma ARah, for being on Books in Hindsight and Encounters USA.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a real blessing.
All right. And so with that, for you Encounters USA people, remember what we always say, always watch your back. For watching, Matthew Heines here. Just want to remind you, if you like this kind of content, subscribe to this channel, whether you're listening on podcast or watching on YouTube. Also, go to encountersusa.com for more videos and podcasts, all archived for your convenience. Also, we have a wonderful Encounters USA blog, as well as an Encounters USA paranormal shop for all of your paranormal apparel. So, not only can you watch your back, you can put some of our designs on yours as well. So we'll see you on down the road on Encounters USA.